Hi there. I'm John Sarakis, and this is The Climb, brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. Our show is about journeys. This is the podcast where we talk to digital agencies about business, marketing, technology, processes, and essentially anything a digital marketing agency would want to learn more about or know. So if you want tips, tricks, tools, mentorship, join our peer group. It's essentially Digital Mastermind is digital agency owners for digital agency owners. We have constant communication via Slack for all questions and concerns, and we have a bi-weekly call. In fact, we have one today at 1:30. So if you want to stay on top of the latest and greatest, this is the group for you. And we also have a gnarly meeting, which pretty soon we're going to be announcing a lot of the things that are surrounding that, such as some of the speakers and some of the places that we're going to be dining and drinking and collaborating together. So grow your agency. Go ahead and contact me. Visit us at digitalmastermind.com or shoot me an email, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. And remember, this is live. We welcome all interaction, so feel free to chime in with any questions or comments to add to the conversation. And today, I'm also going to ask my co-host, good friend, and business partner, David McGraw, to come out here. David, why don't you go ahead and join us, buddy?
How's it going?
It's going well, man. Sporting a new haircut.
Yeah, high and tight.
High and tight. How long have you been with your current barber?
Only like 3 months. My long-term, 15-year barber had to move to Ohio, and it's devastating.
That is devastating. Yeah. How many barbers have you had in your life? Is this?
I don't know.
I've had four that I would actually consider like these are the people that I trust in cutting my hair. And I think it's interesting when you go through the whole selection process of finding a new barber. It really comes down to like one of two things. You're either going to roll the dice like, hey, this place is doing it, or two, you're going to get a referral from somebody else.
Yeah, I think the key is just consistency. Most barbers aren't consistent. One good haircut, next time is a bad haircut, but yeah.
All right. Speaking of barbers, they have to earn our business, and you get that spiel typically at the beginning of it, which starts with, a Q&A of what you want. Doesn't mean they're always going to meet that expectation, but they give you a little pitch. And today we're going to be talking about the process of pitching with power. How do you like that title?
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I was listening to your other titles, and I was like, and then you finally came in with this. I was like, this is great. This is an optimistic. This is a, positive forward title. I love it.
That's typically how it goes with any writing, though. It just, all right, okay, it's a little bit better. You get a couple shitty ones in there, and then usually something is pretty good. Right. I do like one of the other ones though. Stop bitching, start pitching. Sounds like a bumper sticker.
Yeah, I like that one too. It's but that one is a little bit more negative. So
yeah, let's stay on the positive track. And along those lines, when I'm speaking about pitching and when we are, it's not an elevator pitch, right? That's something else entirely. What I'm talking about is the proper pitch. In other words, when this is done, when your pitch is done, you're leaving with a yes, a no, or a clear next step. I also want to be in front of that this isn't prospecting, although there's an element of pitching in there, and that's something completely different, which I'll call prospect pitching. This is a sales pitch, and for this to occur, a relationship has been established prior, and the person has agreed to a meeting, preferably in person or via Zoom, not a phone call. We're not going in cold, right? So just to set the setting here, because if you go in cold, it's my opinion, you're most likely wasting your time. Now, granted, there's great cold callers out there, and that's what I call prospect pitching, where they're going to get in there, they're going to say a value proposition, they're going to, discern some certain things and move forward. That's not what we're talking about here. The objective of this pitch is to convince them to work with you, and to do that, you have to recognize their struggles and empathize with their concerns. All right, so setting that scene.
Can I provide a quick anecdote about a cold call that I received lately that just blew my mind?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
So I get this phone number. It's a local phone number, so I'm thinking it could,
that's what they
mean
do.
Something.
Yeah.
So I answer it. I didn't get the scam likely or suspected fraud. So I answer it and I said, "Hi, this is Dave." And she goes, "Can I speak to David McGraw?" I'm like, I hate when they do that. I hate absolutely when I have to repeat that again. So I'm like, yeah, this is him. She goes, "David, I want to take 2 minutes and talk to you about something that I think you'll benefit from a lot. Is that okay?" And I went, "No, No, it's not okay. I was like, who are you? What are you? I was like, are you soliciting me? And I just hung up. But I mean, it struck me like she didn't give me any information and just asked me if it was okay that she just cold called me. And I went off. I was like, no, it's not okay. Dude.
So she asked your permission. So let's back up. She asked for permission if it's okay that she cold called you.
Yeah.
That's
essentially, or like, hey, can I pitch you real quick? And I was like, no, let me just cut you off right there. No,
yeah, she was trying to buy. She was trying to create buy-in. Right?
Correct.
You've already the more agreements you get, there's a sales funnel. There's marketing funnel, and that's a very linear journey, right?
Yeah.
So
she wants to start a conversation. Once you start talking with him, then I got you. But that's why I was just like, no.
I don't mind a good cold call. If you call me and you are mumbling or you're nervous and you do the double question or you ask me how I'm doing today, I don't like that. What I like is just a clear, and we're kind of getting off subject here, but it's just, all right, clear, like how you can help me. So I'll ask somebody when they're like, is this a sales call?
Right.
They're like, yeah. I was like, all right, what do you want? Get to it. And I was like, no. I was like, go ahead. Just tell me exactly what you want, and I'll let you know if I need that or not. And they go for it. It's like, all right, no, that's not something we need. And if they mess up on there, I'm like, all right, I'm busy. I got to go. Hang up.
I sometimes we get calls all the time at the office, and the ones that sneak by our administrative assistant are the best ones. Like I have to take the call. And then, I find out how they snuck through because they were like, hey, I'm with it, such and such, and sounds like a client, or it sounds like a customer that's pissed off or something like that. So it always gets right through. And then I'm like, dang, they're good.
There was a guy, he sells like one of those dime a dozen, what the hell are those people? Financial planners.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, man. Financial planners and insurance sales. That has got to be the toughest sell out there right now.
Sure.
Just looking for it. Anyway, he had a really smooth pitch, got me on the phone, and because he lied to her. He said this was a really important business thing or something to the nature line. I took the call and I was like, well, what did you tell her? And he said, he's like, well, people don't want to know that they're working with a financial planner. So I try to keep that as private as possible. I was like, yeah, but you also started our relationship with a lie. So I can only assume there's going to be more in the future. I appreciate your time. It's not going to work out. And hey, if you're going to start it on the wrong foot, why would I expect it to get better from there?
Correct.
So, all right, digging into pitching, right? This is something I love. I actually thought like if I could just do this all the time, just pitch and pitch and pitch, I think that would be a grand lifestyle, right? Because this is something that I truly love. It's one of the best part of sales. And I think it's something that I'm pretty decent at. And I've been lucky enough to have an experience with some amazing pitch men and women to watch and witness the way that they go about their work, where I've been able to borrow and craft my own. What's that?
I said, oh, shucks.
All right. So the number one is creating comfort, right? Start with an icebreaker. You want to get personal. You want to tell an anecdote or a joke. If you can actually tell jokes. If you're not funny, don't tell some shitty joke your uncle told you at a barbecue. Whatever you have to do to get everyone comfortable. This is paramount, right? And if you can't do this, you're probably not good with people yet. And I say yet because anyone can get good with people. You just have to understand them and practice. So, for instance, think of stand-up comedians, right? They all suck when they start, but through time, they get better. Pitching is a lot like that. And the number one step, and if this is not present, you're going to fail, is you have to create comfort.
So one of my tips that I credit in my history of developing people skills, growing up, I was kind of on the shy side. I was kind of on the nerdy side. And every time, I knew I needed to develop a much better rapport with people, right? So I started always asking when somebody says, how you doing? So many people, and if you pay attention, they'll just say, I'm good. That's it, because they're shy and they don't want to engage. So I started forcing myself to say, I'm good, and how are you? And then just that piece led to more conversations and, developing more people skills. And because I see it all the time, I'll say, "Hey, how's it going?" And people are like, "Oh, I'm good." That's it. And then that's like the end of the conversation. So just that small thing has evolved into people skills.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, a little catalyst there.
Yep.
Yeah, I dig that. And in that, I mean, just take that to bring it back in the conversation. I mean, there's a few. It's usually around a minute to 3 minutes, sometimes 5, where there's this process of everybody. Where there's a common topic, it's super safe, right? And then sports, that's it's pretty safe, but depending lately in Tampa Bay, it hasn't been because there's a bunch of fucking assholes talking shit about my team. But we're not going to go there. We're going to leave it alone. Let's just keep moving. And then,
what I hate? The worst conversation is in the wintertime when we have a client up north and they've got, they're in some blizzard and they, got to start the call with, "Oh, I wish I was with you, where you're at." And I'm like, okay. I hate that.
It's part of it though, right? And it's embracing it and trying to take it to another place, right? But anyway, so everybody's comfort is paramount, and as the leader of a pitch, which I'll get into in a bit, you need to continually monitor that, right? Number 2, this is also in that first few minutes after, let's say, the pleasantries are done, really getting everybody, making sure that they're there. Everybody says a couple words, doing their introductions, is setting the table, right? And that is, some people call this house cleaning. I essentially I call it setting the table, right? And during this, you want to establish the agenda, announce everyone that's in the meeting, right? So do the introductions if you didn't do those in the create comfort stage, and tell everyone what you want to happen at the end of the pitch, right? So if there's anybody else there, if it's not just you, tell them what you want to happen. And when this is extremely important, and write this down because this is a total game changer. By the end, for instance, quote unquote, tell them by the end of this, we'll either move forward with the signature or not. Be super clear on what you want to happen after everything is said and done in your pitch. Or another thing you can say, or we'll set up a second meeting to have a deeper discussion, on prices, whatever that is. Tell them what you want at the end of your pitch.
Yeah, so many people forget to set the stage, or however you want to claim it. I get so annoyed when I get onto a call and nobody's owning the call, or laying out what's going on. What are we here for? That's all you can do is just reiterate, even though everybody knows. Even if you sent out an event agenda, set the stage. What are we here for? What are we trying to accomplish? And just like you said, what do you want to happen out of this? I mean, if your job is to own the call, go ahead.
Takes 30 seconds.
Right. And just recap why we're here and who's here, why other people are here, and especially if there's new people joining the conversation, essentially.
Yeah.
If the decision maker is being brought in for the first time, then acknowledge them and welcome them to the process.
Make them feel comfortable. Absolutely. Right. And I think so many people are concerned in pitching and all the wrong things. They're so worried about the message. They're so worried about the visuals and the presentation that they forget all the fundamentals. If you flawlessly execute the basics in life, you will be a high performer because everybody else forgets those.
Dude, all you got, run a lesson. That is such a real lesson right there. If you just do the basics, you're guaranteed to be at least mildly successful.
Yep. Yeah. And just in business, everybody has all their personal stuff, all these other things. And it's just like, just show up, do the basics. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to be able to outperform everybody if you're consistently executing on the basics.
Right.
So with that, all right. So now we've set the table, right? So you understand that you've created comfort. We can get into more of the conversation or the pitch. I purposely do not structure something with a rigid, tight presentation or anything like that, because you want it to be fluid. And a lot of these are tailored to the person that you're speaking to, right? But number 3 is identify a problem or problems, right? Preferably one, because it's easier and you can have all these nodes and tangents off that one, but you can have multiple problems. But if you have one that you just know is super core, that there's pain involved, if you like to use that terminology, or just, it bothers them and this is something that they've communicated, or maybe they haven't and you found it, This is the thing to shape your pitch around, right? And also, I want to say that you don't want to make them wrong. For instance, if it's like poor SEO rankings, you don't ever want to make them wrong in this situation that they didn't know this, right? Or don't make someone feel stupid because they're ignorant and they didn't know it exists. So, but this is the thing that you want to continually talk to them about, is this problem where you can continually drive it home in an eloquent way. And remember that this may be something that's delicate. There may be a family member that was in charge, whether it's even a Fortune 1000 company, and you don't want to get in there and make anybody wrong. So identify the problem, preferably one, continually talk about that throughout your entire pitch, and do not make anybody wrong for that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a sunk cost in whatever you're reviewing, right? They've invested something, even if it's just an emotional investment. And if you come in, guns blazing, then you're going to just create enemies. And then now you've got to deal with not only pitching a good idea, but you have to battle your internal nemesis now, because there's going to be somebody fighting you from coming in. If you come in like that. So,
and you don't know who chirps, right? And what I mean by the chirpers are, if you make an enemy, like you said, and it's at that table, or maybe it's even somebody in another department that just didn't make it to that meeting and they're a stakeholder involved, and they're going to be a part of that decision, they're going to continually chirp against you. Yep. And all right, you can't even see the cancer that's there, so there's no way you're going to cut it out, and you're never going to win the deal.
And when I recognize that there is that, I almost kind of self-sabotage the deal and move on, because I, early in the Oyova career, I used to fight tooth and nail, and I would even tell the person that, like, usually like the head of marketing or sales or something, I'd be like, look, that's the typical IT guy. Of course he's going to raise these concerns. Of course, and I tried to fight, but they're an internal resource. They're already hired. They're not getting fired. And then the guy that has to fight the head IT guy doesn't want that fight, because he doesn't want his life to, his day-to-day to suck. So I just realized, I'm like, all right, I'm out.
I try to call it out when I can, but there's some that it's going to be such a violent, contentious situation. The energy is not worth it. But I'll try to just be direct and say, like, okay, it feels like you're not bought into this. Can you explain that? Can we talk about that? And if we can create that dialogue, positive things happen. But another quick anecdote, early on in my career, and maybe I've told this on the show before, I don't recall if I have. We had a big client. It was in the agriculture space, and it was family owned, but the founder was now the chairman. He hired a CEO, and the CEO called me. We had a pitch, right? And it went great. The guy was just absolutely floored. He was just super happy about all the things we were going to do. We had the problem right. And after that, and it was like late, he called me like 7:30 or 8 p.m. And he's like, hey, John, yeah. And just really, smooth guy. I was like, hey, yeah, what's going on? He's like, hey, yeah, I loved what you did today. But I got one favor. And if you go ahead and take care of this, we'll go ahead and make sure that, we sign the deal tomorrow and move forward. I'm like, okay. He said, do you remember the marketing director that was in there? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, do you know that she was kind of a stick in the mud? I was like, yeah, that's okay. He's like, yeah, I need you to fire her.
An outside resource?
Wow. I swear to God. So I was like, okay, let's see what this looks like, So I call her up, and she made it easy on me. At first, though, she said, I was like, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take over the project. And I don't know why I even took this on. I think I was just so desperate for work at the time. This is right. Like 2010. We had nothing. And I'm one of those people that I learn most things the hard way, if not all. This is one of those things. So I call her up, and I explain, like, yeah, hey, we're going to go ahead and take over the project. A lot of the other people on the team aren't going to be involved. And I go through this like long-winded, indirect way of communicating it. And I remember her asking, she's like, are you firing me? Do you even have the authority to do that? And I mentioned the CEO's name, and I said, like, yeah, this is the direction that we're moving in. And she totally didn't even understand it, right? But anyway, she's now fired. So we go, 3 months go by, everything's fantastic. And then I go into another meeting, and she's sitting there at the table. And I was like, what's going on? And the chairman is now in there. And he's like, hey, we just want, we went ahead and we brought her back because it's the chairman's daughter.
Oh my God.
I didn't know.
So this is a setup? I mean,
Total setup. So
wow.
she comes back and she got revenge. She made life hell for us. She didn't fire us immediately. She continually rejected everything that we did. She made sure that she fought us on every bill. Time reports would come over. Oh, that's ridiculous. And we eventually just ended up resigning from the account. She made it so painful that it just wasn't worth moving forward.
Right. And it rarely is. Like when you have that internal fight, it's a waste of a lot of energy. So
the moral of that story is no matter how good you pitch, do not get involved in the office politics of one of your clients.
Got our comment from Ryan here.
All right.
When IT guy is in the scene, I include him and find out what his pain points are. When IT guy is in your corner, the decision maker trusts you and it becomes your internal champion. Look, I completely agree. Yep. I'm really good at looping in that IT guy because I have IT chops, right? And most of the time when the IT guy is in the meeting, he's thinking, because most of the time it's a sales guy, not so technically sound. And he's going to try to trip you up and throw curveball questions at you. And the last meeting we were in with their tech guy, I mean, I was just countering him left and right. And he realized, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about. And basically, stop talking. So, yeah, if you can get the IT guy on your side, that's, definitely a yes. It's just hard to do sometimes.
It is, yeah. And I think that goes into one of those, and just understanding their position, right, and being, compassionate toward them. Their whole job is mainly security for the most part, right? Making things are secure and connected, and that leaches out into the personal realm where they're continually looking at everything as a threat. So, and they also just are notoriously cheap as hell, and they don't want to spend any money because they believe they can build it themselves. Also, I need to call that out.
100%. But excellent question. And, anyone else that's watching, throw a question at us. Love audience interaction.
And speaking of audience interaction, when you're in your pitch, you want to make sure that it's all about them. Focus on them. Don't do that slide deck that you have that continually just, shows your story with all your people. And now there's a time and a place for telling a story, and I'll get to that. You want to make sure that as much as possible is continually focused on them. They are the focal point, their company, their problems, what is going on with them. And also don't talk about cost and fees. There's a time and a place for that as well. I want to be clear. I've seen some pitches where I was like, why the hell did they just mention that? I mean, we're a quarter of the way through this thing. We don't even need to get there yet. So you just want to let them know that you understand and keep the focus on them.
I like your strategy that you talk about of bringing a gift, and not a physical gift, but something valuable to them. And if you could work that into the pitch, I mean, everyone likes a little freebie. So if you can give them a little report or a write-up that they can review and walk away with, I mean, that's valuable. That's a great tactic.
So one of our clients, it's an accounting firm, has something that's amazing for all of their pitches and client meetings. They do like those table mats at like Chinese restaurants.
Yeah.
What they do is they create a placemat that has all of your numbers on it, right? So let's say that it has you, and then it has like where you compare to your competitors. So you literally have this like placemat that they take you to lunch with that you eat on top. It was just such a cool concept that they came up with. And
your crayons.
You could, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, and also gifts are insights, right? So there's just, an idea or something, also like the compliments that are in there. And that's something that we, continually educate the account managers on. But also speaking of that IT person, number 5 here in the powerful pitching process is bring in your cavalry, right? So if you're not expected to know everything. I highly recommend taking a team approach when it comes to sales. So don't pretend like you know everything. Bring in your team whenever you can. Even if they're contractors, let's say that you're a small agency, figure out some type of solution where you can have the conversation, bring them in where you don't feel threatened. If you really want to tie it up, use non-circumvent agreements, which if you email me, I'll go ahead and send you a fantastic one. But bring in your team and make sure everyone has a role. You should have stated this at the top in either the comfort or the table setting phase. And if they are going to be there, make sure that there is a contribution, right? So account managers need to add something related to account management, maybe something that they would do. Try to introduce them into the pitch in certain areas. SEO should speak something about SEO. You get the point there. A developer is going to speak about, the development side of things, and lob questions at your team based on what you don't know. Also, let them know that you're not going to catch them off guard. So that's also just some good team management there. And remember, as I said earlier, your role as the lead salesperson is the person leading this pitch. So make no mistake that you need to define your role as the leader and continually guide this throughout the entire process of the pitch, pulling in your people when necessary, and make sure that everybody understands their role.
So we recently were just on a call where somebody was pitching us. And, to your point, make sure your team is on the same team, right? So we just had that pitch where their IT guy fought their sales guy on every point.
Yep.
And I'm like, you don't even have a cohesive team here. What are you fighting for? Even if your top guy, or even if your lead person makes a mistake, make sure you correct it in a safe way, not an attacking way, not in a correction, and don't correct them immediately. You got to find a tact to, does it even need to be corrected? Is it important? I remember this pitch we were talking to, we recently had, they had a demo and somebody wanted to purchase it for a certain price. And the guy instantly talked over and corrected him and mentioned a different price. It didn't matter what the price was.
No.
The fact that, they got that pitch in was what was important. So it was just very combative. And, your team needs to be on the team playing for the same side. So it's
continue to lift each other up, right? You do not want to push down. And if there is something that needs to be corrected, there is an eloquent, delicate way to do that. Like, hey, actually, I think, there's a smoother way to go about it. Yeah, that was like Clown Town. Like, that guy is like, wow, seriously. Like, you work in the sales prevention department, whether you know that or not.
Right. And I had to, call the guy back and give him that feedback because I felt like, it was important information. And he said, you're not the first one to say that. And I was like, well, then you've got things you need to work on then.
Yeah, that just sounds like he needs to be direct with that other guy. But yeah, I want to commend you on that. I mean, I don't think enough people get feedback, especially after a pitch, where you could say like, "Hey, what did that look like?" People are too concerned with the way that you might make them, look or feel. But I think if somebody is willing to take that information, that shows a lot about who they are as a person. I also think the person that's willing to give that information, though, that's a hell of a lot tougher. Because I know I've given people like, "Hey, do you want some advice on this?" Like, yeah, sure. And you give it to them and you're like, all right, they're crushed. It's like, all right, well, I mean, shit, you're going to be in the gutter. What am I supposed to do with that?
This guy actually said it made him want to work with us even more because I gave that feedback, because I was direct.
Yeah. So, A players align with A players.
Yep.
All right. So after you bring in your cavalry, let's say that you're presenting now, and you can never, I can't stress this more than enough. You cannot bore somebody into working with you, right? You want to make whatever it is that you're talking about, your pitch, you want to make it as engaging and interactive as possible. And what you don't want to do is put together that slide deck that just eats up the entire amount of time allotted for the pitch, where they don't get a word in edgewise, right? The prospect or the customer. Granted, you can use a deck as a guide. I'm not completely sold on a deck. I think it's more about a conversation and an experience. And what I mean by that is you want to keep them engaged. You want them talking as much as possible. You want them enthralled throughout the conversation, where every point that they make, you're building on it with either a question that shows how insightful you are, or some type of statement that moves the conversation in the direction to the solution. I can't also stress that don't be afraid to really dig in and get into their world, right? You have to be willing to fail and accept that. So get in there and explore. And what I mean by that is asking those questions that continually move the conversation around, different directions, but in a direction. So essentially, if you got the interstate, that's one way where you're just going to be super direct and you're going to just take your shitty sales deck and you're just going to go ahead and pitch them, not let them get a word in edgewise, and hope and, pray at the end that they're going to close. No, what I'm talking about is going down the back roads with them, seeing a lot of scenery, and as long as you're heading in the right direction and they're engaged in it, having, their points understood where you're accepting and recognizing their needs, you're going to get to where you need to go. It's using the trip analogy, not trying to make this punny, but make it an engaging and interactive trip.
So I think it comes down to just being a good conversationalist. Because there's a lot of people that will talk at you, right? And not a lot of people ask questions that try to engage you. So when I talk to people, I ask them questions about themselves and what they're doing. It's the same thing with a business. You need to be able to come up with questions that you can ask about their business that's intelligent, insightful, and inquisitive. So if you know that they're, let's say, keep with the travel. If they're a travel website, I need to be prepared to ask intelligent questions about the travel industry. How do you think COVID is going to impact you? Or I've got to bring insightful questions that gets them to be engaged, and now we're having a really good conversation that's back and forth, and then I can show my excitement for how to solve it, and then boom, I've got them.
Yeah. And I think another sub point to that is just enthusiasm. Right. So if you're enthusiastic 100%. And you want to be there with them, right, enjoying the audience, enjoying the people, and also, do you love what it is that you do? Do you like what it is that you're talking about? Do you believe in what you're selling? All those elements are present in there. And yes, definitely being a good conversationalist where you know how to move a conversation forward. There are people that are just not that comfortable, but there's practice. If you like the question that you had, and how are you? Right. Yeah. So, okay, what are all those elements that you can introduce so you can be better with people? Are all things that can be learned.
Yeah. And it's practice.
Yeah.
So, at first, my pitches were awkward and my conversation, and it was challenging to get that engagement. Now, I just roll in and I'm like, what are we doing? That's amazing today. And they're like, what? It's just bring that excitement and, and then be very direct. Like, all right, what are we going? People don't like here wasting time. They don't, if you get into fluff stuff halfway through your pitch, you're wasting people's time. So, yeah, bring the excitement and it's contagious. Excitement is contagious. So if you're excited about their project, then they're going to be even more excited, and you want them leaving, on a high note. So.
And I'm happy you mentioned the time, which brings up the next point is throughout whatever your pitch is, your conversation, if you're going to be pitching with power, you have to continually pose solutions and insights. And it could be one solution where you build up this, amazing conclusion, right? Where it's just like, oh, wow. Or you can continually do it along. The other one's a bit risky. Now we're kind of getting into the presentation side of things, but during your pitch, make sure you have continual solutions and insights. So for instance, like when it comes to websites, I have them provide 3 websites they like, and I can literally in a pitch, we explore those with the team, breaking down the features they like, and we can walk them through what those look like, right? If they want those, we can look at their own website and break down, specific things of what we're going to change. If it comes to SEO, we look up their competitors in real time, compare it to essentially their SEO results, and we can talk about their site and some of the things that need to happen on site as well as off site. Paid search, it's very similar, reviewing ads. When it's a full campaign, you can dig in diligently and, break down each one of those things for a more involved pitch. It may even take longer, but whatever they're interested in is the direction that you need to go. So you have to continually listen to your audience. So the more that you match their rhythm, the more that they're going to trust you and they're going to want to move forward. So if they don't care about something, don't mention it, or be brief as hell and move on. So just acknowledge that what they don't find important, and just take a temperature check. Okay, this is the direction that they wanna move in. It's okay. And just know that we're all humans. We love stories. We love entertainment. And getting into the nitty-gritty details of hosting, and if it's somebody on your team that's doing that, you need to manage that and stop it, because that's not a thrilling conversation for most. So continually monitor your audience.
You have to be able to read the room. If you can't do that, you're going to be a terrible pitch person, right? You have to be able to know when somebody's unengaged, or you're turning them off, or whatever it is. You have to be able to have that skill. If you don't have that, you're going to be in a challenging position most of the time. But I'd also say, to add to your points, is make sure you don't get into the weeds on details. You can bore the shit out of someone real fast when you're just focusing on the nitty gritty. And so tell your team members when it's their turn to go through those, just hit the highlights and then boom, results. And if they say, now show me how you got there, that's them saying, please show me the detail. And then you get into it. But don't just proactively get into the specifics. And also, as another tip, don't rely on live demos. Take screenshots, put them in the presentation. Don't rely on, hey, let me just go to this dev server, or let's show them this live, because that always fails. I mean, our last pitch completely fell on their face because they tried to show us something live and it didn't work.
When they were pitching it. Yeah, and it's obvious they weren't skilled at this game, It's there was a lot of things where they weren't even in rhythm with each other. But I think it just all depends on, the atmosphere that you're trying to create. And I agree. Yeah, if it's not a tested and tried tool, for instance, we use SEMrush when it comes to SEO that we'll use to pitch things. I have no problem ever going into there and using that tool to demo how we use that tool, right? But if it's not an asset that we're comfortable with, yeah, you're rolling the dice. That's a bit of a gamble.
So we got some audience feedback here. Don't you feel like people reveal their real pain points the longer you talk to them as well? Then you're truly helping them solve problems, not just sell them a service. It's a good question for John.
Absolutely. And there's also another word I want everybody to write down, which is called propinquity. So that is I know it's one of those long words. It's not going to end up on the value.
How many points in Scrabble is that?
I probably couldn't spell it, but just write it down the best you can. So to Erica's question, and what this word means, essentially, the longer you spend with somebody and the more time that you're around them, the more they're going to trust you. So if you've had multiple meetings where you've done like Q&A before your pitch, or your pitch is dragged out for, let's say, 3 or 4 hours, I'm not recommending that, but at the end of the day, if you're around somebody more and you have more experiences with them, it's just natural for them to see your patterns and behaviors, and then, subconsciously and consciously trust you more.
Yeah, 100%. And some more feedback from Ryan. What's amazing in your business today? I love that. So thanks for the feedback. It is truly a great topic.
Is that what you said? What's amazing in your business today?
That's what I said, and he's quoting it when I was speaking earlier.
Oh, got it. I thought you said, okay, interesting. Yeah. I thought it was a statement. I didn't realize it was a question. I do like that.
Yeah.
All right. So number 8, this is getting toward the end. I think this is extremely important. And this is the power of a story, right? So let's say you go through all these other points, and let's say that you have, a solution pitch, but I recommend summing up or using a story to solidify your points and what it's like to work with you. So give an example. It could be a case study. And I don't mean some drab, lame-ass case study where it's just like, here was the challenge, here was the problem that we solved. Get a little bit more creative and take some initiatives, roll up your damn sleeves, and actually get into something that's engaging and talk about, like, hey, there was this tile company, and this is, the problem that they had. This is what they solved for them. 2 of the people on this call, can you go ahead and tell them a little bit about the problem, right? All right. And also guide it through, and then talk about how you solved it. And also be willing to give that as a reference or do a scheduled call with them so they can help finish the rest of the story with the people that you're pitching. At the end of the day, the point of it is you want to have them understand what you're capable of. You want them enraptured with what you're saying and understand what it's like to work with you. That's very important. And you can explain it, but also solidify that later with a reference from somebody with either you're going to be present or just give them their information where they can contact them directly.
I mean, that's just closer material right there. I mean, when you bring a customer or a client onto a call or have that direct feedback, I mean, it's killer. And what I like is when they talk about how to work, how working with us is, not just the results. There's lots of results. A lot of people can deliver results.
Mm-hmm.
But how painful was it to get to that result? Or how easy, how seamless, how smooth? Like that is what makes our service incredible. Is that easy? You know, that's in our mantra. We want to be the easiest company to work with. And, you know, that's what when you bring that customer on to give that referral, that's what's key. I mean, Joe from Planet HS used to do that for me all the time. And if I could get Joe to speak with them, I close it, you know, every time.
Yeah, they're gonna help close the deal for you because they want you to win. Because you've built a relationship with them, but you've also executed for them and done many great things where they're happy with the service.
Which, interestingly, in the earlier years of Oyova, he did not support help me build because he felt that it might have taken away resources away from his project. So it's kind of interesting how things changed. But now, you know, we have, look at our clutch reviews. We have 30 clutch reviews that are just an outstanding example of what it is to work with us. And so now we can send this, you know, we send this one URL link to customers and they're like, damn, there's, you know, 30 customers that are willing to publish how it is to work with Oyova. And that is powerful. So,
and not only published, they're willing to get interviewed by a third party where they're actually taking the time out of their day to have, you know, a 15 to 30-minute conversation with them.
It's the most legit user review system I've seen or platform out there. I mean, it's not a Yelp where it's just somebody saying whatever they want. And Glassdoor is like chock full of fake review, you know, fake comments. So Clutch is by far the best platform I've seen for validating a company's work. So,
no, I agree. Which brings up speaking of closing, brings up the last point, close strong. And I mean, close really strong. And how to close strong is ask them if they can see themselves working with you. And then ask them if there's anything you didn't cover that they would want to know. And then ask them where you stack up in their decision. Are there any competitors? What is the probability that they're going to select you over somebody else? Those are the types of closing questions that will earn you the business and also let you know if you flubbed the whole thing up and you suck, because you need to know that too so you can get better on the next one.
I mean, I like just asking them straight up, what can we do to get this business?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then if they say price, then you know, then we can work on price. Or if they say they need this or that, you know, like I just flat out, what can we do to close this business with you?
I typically ask, yeah. So, I mean, if we get to that process, and that's the other thing too, and I mean, I don't think it's necessarily in the pitch. I think everybody should always ask, what do I have to do and show you that you're going to buy?
Yep.
Like, what do you need? Like, and then people will tell you like, oh, for us to buy, they're going to give you that whole process. I just don't understand why enough people don't ask that.
It's the same with just flat out asking them, what's the budget? How much are we talking here? I mean, if you don't, a lot of people are afraid to get into that direct, but I'm like, hey, let's just save everybody a bunch of time. What are we dealing with? What are we talking about? Because we're going to craft you a solution that fits your budget. And instead of us coming up with, you know, a Cadillac, but you're on a Pinto budget, you know, we just wasted all our time then. So, you know, get direct and just, you know, especially on the close, what do we need to do to win this business? And you should be able to close it if you can provide what they need.
Yeah. And yeah, there's been numerous times where I tell people like, all right, we're excited to work with you. You know, what does it take here? Like, what do we have to do? And people, man, they'll open up the doors. They'll tell you, all right, hey, look, you got to come $2,000 off this. And if they like and trust you, if they don't like and trust you,
correct,
then it's a non-starter, and you're more than likely going to know that somewhere else in there, but they will completely confirm that during the closing questions.
Yeah, if they get all shifty and they like respond like they're dodging, that means you failed at the beginning to build trust and and be authentic. Because now they're just trying to get out of the pitch. They're just like, all right, let's wrap this up. Or hey, we got to review internally and then figure out what would all right, we're not going to win this. So if you get there and they're not ready to be direct and they're not ready to be open and just, then you didn't pitch powerfully.
Yeah. And also, you may have not teed it up where you should be pitching at all. Like, this is not, if you don't have the buy-in necessary and you have a bunch of naysayers or there's not the need present, you're going to be wasting your time. It's not as warm as you think it is, and it's going to be cold. You need to make sure that there's a solid interest, or you have a solution where they understand that they have a problem, or that you can convince them to guide this conversation forward. But if a budget and authority isn't present or a need, then you're not going to close this deal.
Right.
Boom. And awesome. Another great comment from Erica. Thank you so much.
Always like providing value.
Value. That's the other thing too, though, with this. Like, you have to provide value every step of the way. If you're not providing value, then you're wasting somebody's time. And that's one of the only things that we never get back, right? We never get our time back. So I think it's just being really considerate and appreciative of their time and making sure that you're adding value. And if you're not, just be entertaining as hell. I mean, give them something, give them something to walk away with.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like with interviewers or with our candidates that apply, like the ones that are entertaining. I'm like, I want to push them to the next step just because it's a fun person to be around.
Right. Likability is a huge factor. Speaking of which, one of our DMG sponsors got an email yesterday from an interview that I'll be able to read on the next show. The interview went horribly wrong. And just the return email that they received was, I mean, it's downright laughable. You know what? I think I'll just post it on social media. I'll remove all the information and just post it.
Sweet.
Less tasks for me to do. Other than that, I want to do a quick sum up. I don't have too much more to go over. So to sum this bad boy up, so you can pitch powerfully. Number one is you want to make everybody comfortable, right? Make sure that is taken care of, and you can move to the next step. If you're not making everybody comfortable, it's going to make things a hell of a lot harder. Sometimes you might have somebody that's negative or having a bad day. Don't focus on it too much, but do your best to make everybody comfortable. Number two, you want to go ahead and set the table. Establish the agenda, and by the end, have some type of. And then you want to state the question that by the end of this, we're either going to move forward, get a signature, or not. Let them know that you are there to close. Number three is identify a problem or problems. I recommend typically one with like smaller ones in there because you want this, giant one that you can, build everything on. But if you can't find that and you have a bunch of small ones, do your best to, prepare some solutions around that. And remember to not make them wrong. It can be a very delicate conversation because you don't know who's all involved. Number four, keep the focus on them. They're the focal point. Number five, bring in the cavalry and take a team approach to your selling whenever you can. Just having those other people in the room with you will not only make you look smarter, it'll show how smart your team actually is and show that you're a real company. And a company is a collection of people. It's not one person. That's either a freelancer or a hobby. Number six, make it engaging and interactive. So the more that they talk, the better. You want to keep them engaged and enthralled as much as possible throughout that conversation. I can't state this enough. Do not bore them. Know your audience. Continually respond based on the feedback that they are giving you. Number seven, pose solutions and insights throughout your entire pitch. Dave even mentioned bringing gifts, which are essentially insights or something, some type of takeaway that's not necessarily tangible, but you want them to understand that you get them and you have ideas and solutions that help them in their journey. And number eight, use a story to solidify all your points and what it's like to work with you. Come up with a story, practice the story. This can be a story that you repeat all the time, but of course it has to relate to your audience. And if it doesn't, don't use that story. So, and also, if you can get your team members in there, just start with a case study, right? But don't bore them with, the typical, case study. You want something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end of it, that they're happy and they want to hear more. And number nine, close strong. Ask the questions necessary to make sure that you're going to get the business. What do we have to do to win today? What do we have to do to earn your account? and go through like, all right, is it timing? Is it budget? Is it the prices that we're throwing? Do you not like me? I've asked that question. And sometimes, it gets some laughs. Sometimes it gets a stare. Either way, I have an answer and I can move forward. So other than that, this is how you pitch powerfully. And if you have any feedback that you'd like to send me that you were too embarrassed to ask in a comment or on the live feed today, or you're listening to this in a recording, feel free to shoot me an email, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. I'd love to hear from you.
So I love the summation, and I wonder, I was thinking, you know what? Jon really needs to write a book about team selling. Because that's kind of a new concept. I don't think people really talk about it, but we do it really well. Like, we bring the whole team into the sales process. And then I was thinking, damn, with all these lists we're putting together for all these episodes, I mean, they're almost like our chapters, and we can almost write a book. We can almost write the DMG, the book, and just put together these points, because I think it's great information. And if I had a resource like this when we were, 10 years ago, no telling where we'd be right now. It's solid information.
Oh, I know. I agree. And I appreciate that. And I think, it could make a book. What I also find interesting about that point is, and not to say anything negative about anybody, but there is a guest. I had a pre-chat with her yesterday, just a fantastic mind. I don't even want to announce it yet. We'll announce it before. But she brought up a good point, and that is that based on our group, there are a lot of others that are providing information that don't live it every day. They don't have an agency. They're not trying these things, right? So there's maybe they had one for 1 or 2 years, or they worked in the industry in a long weekend, and they sold it, but they're not in it every day. And that's, to me, that's a big difference. We're literally fucking doing this. Like, this is what we do, and this is what wins, right? So it's not hypothetical. It's not, a hope and a prayer. It's not empirical where you saw some other people do it. It's like, no, if this doesn't work, then we fail. That's a big deal to me.
That's why I love doing this show. I mean, it's just being transparent and authentic and telling you, this is what we're doing on a weekly basis. This is how we operate. This is what we're doing. It works, and steal it, take it. I mean, we're so confident in our team that, we love, we'll be up for competition.
Yeah. And then, it's in the Slack group, like, these are the things that we'll post, like, hey, on the call this, in the next few hours that we're going to have with everybody, these are some of the points that we're going to go over, like, all right, what's working, what's not working. And these are the things that we continually refine and, turn the dial so we can make sure that we're moving toward our goals.
All right.
All right. Other than that, that's all I have on this Wednesday. So thank you so much for joining us. If you want to go ahead and join the Digital Mastermind, shoot me an email, Jon, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. Like, share, comment, do whatever you want with the show. Really appreciate you listening. And then we'll see you guys again Friday. Thank you so much. Bye now.